Welcome to The Bark-Covered House, William Knowlin's memoir from early pioneer Michigan in the 1830s. This is chapter 17. It's called How I Got into Trouble Riding in a Canoe. I often rode in my canoe when I did not go fishing. I took one ride in it that I shall always remember. At least the remembrance of it has forced itself upon my mind a number of times in the days gone by, and I expect to think on it a few times more. Of course, my oldest sister Rachel, who is now Mrs. Crandall of Dearborn, became acquainted with the young ladies of the neighborhood. One fine afternoon in the spring of the year, when the water was high, two of her friends came to see her. They were considered very fine young ladies. One was Miss Lucy Lord, the other I will call nameless, but she's an old resident and lives nearby. If at any time this should meet her eye, she will vouch for the truth of it. They came and spent the afternoon with sister. Of course, as all young men do, I believe, I felt a little flattered and thought, no doubt, one object of their visit was to see me. Whether my humble self was once in all their thoughts when they were making their toilet that day or not, I gave them the credit of it. I thought I had never seen one of them, at least, look any better than she did that afternoon. Her hair was arranged very nicely, and she was very graceful. Of course, when my sister told me they wished very much to go for a boat ride, I could not very well to refuse to go with them. I hoped to let them see with how much skill I could manage my canoe. But alas for my skill. The flat was covered with water from our little ridge to the creek, a distance of 20 rods. It looked like a large river. The canoe was anchored near the ridge. The young ladies got in, and we started from the landing. I had to look out for the stumps and hummocks so as to not run against them nor run my boat aground. I had my passengers aboard, and I stood in the hind end of the canoe with a hand pole, and I set it along with greater rapidity than it could have been paddled. We glided over the water on the flat, amidst joyful acclamations and gleeful laughter of my fair companions. One said, "I haven't had a boat ride before in Michigan." Miss Lucy, who sat in the bow end of the boat, waved her handkerchief and said, "Oh, bless me, isn't this pleasant sailing on the water?" And the other said, "How nice we go." Of course, I propelled along with considerable speed. I thought I had one of the nicest, prettiest, and most intelligent load of passengers that had ever been in my canoe or on that water, and I would give them a nice ride. At last we got round as far as the creek, where the waters ran more swiftly than it did on the flat. I told the young ladies I thought we'd better not try to navigate that, but they all said, "Oh, let us ride up the creek." I thought I was master of the situation and I could manage the canoe. I did not want to tell them that I was afraid for fear that they would say I was faint-hearted. I thought that would be very much against me, and as I had such a brave crew, I made up my mind to go up the strong current. So I turned the bow of the boat up against the current as much as I could with one hold, but I could not get it straight against the current. It shot ahead its length or more, and then I moved my hand pole to get a new hold. Now we were over the creek, and the water being 4 or 5 feet deep, it was impossible for me to get my pole down to the bottom again in time to save us. While I was trying to do that, the current, being stronger than I supposed, turned the boat sideways, and I saw that we were gone for it. The girls sprang to one side of the boat, and down we went in a plunge, all together into the water. My craft foundered, filled with water, and went down. The stream, at least. Miss Lucy Ford was the heroine of the occasion. Luckily, she saved herself by jumping, though she got very wet. She got onto a little hummock on the bank and was on terra firma. As soon as I took to the situation, I exerted myself to save the rest of the crew. The nameless girls came in sight about the same time my own did. As soon as she could hallo, she said, "Lord have mercy, Lord help." Miss Lucy held out her hand and said, "Come here, and the Lord will help you." I helped her and my sister to the bank as quickly as possible. I had to be very lively in securing the white pocket handkerchief that had been our flag while sailing. After we got fairly out, they started like 3 deer, as 3 deer they were, for the house, each one for herself. The way they made 3 wakes through the water was something new to me. I had never seen the like of that before. Miss Lucy went ahead, full of life. They went through the water from 1 to 2 feet deep all the way to the ridge. There were my father and mother and all the rest to witness their safe arrival on shore and join them in their merry, though I think sad laugh. I knew it would be all laid to me. After I watched them to the house and knew they were very jolly, I started for the canoe. It had gone down in the water to a very large log that lay across the creek and lodged against it. As I was wet as I could be, I jumped in again and drew it from the log and pulled it along full of water up the creek until I got where the bank was a little higher, and then I drew the front end up and the water ran over the back end. When it was so that I could tow it, I took it across the flat in front of the house and left it there in its place. And then I went in the house. They had coined a brand new title for me. They called me Captain. They said I had come near drowning my passengers. Mother said it was not safe for young ladies to ride with me on the water, and Father said he thought that I was not much of a sailor, that I did not understand navigation, and I made my mind up that he was correct, and that I was not much of a waterman. It can actually be quite difficult to kind of maneuver your dugout canoe. They're heavy beasts to begin with and not very water dynamic or hydrodynamic. And you have all these passengers in the front end and you're in the back end with a pole and you're working against current. It's no wonder that they had trouble and tipped over and everybody fell out, because they can be a little tippy, especially if you have passengers that aren't used to the canoe. So it isn't any wonder that they all ended up in the water. And yeah, he should have stayed on the flat water that didn't have any current. But it certainly has the ring of truth to it, taking a dugout canoe and having those kinds of conditions. And I'm always wary when I'm on the water with those, because they're not as easy to work as your normal everyday canoe is these days. I love the stories that are in the bark covered house. They ring so true, and it certainly gives us an amazing glimpse into early 19th century frontier Michigan living. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this reading from William Knowlin's Bark Covered House, and make sure to join us for the next chapter. Thanks for watching.